Hi, and welcome to the Closeness podcast. My name is Tari, and today I'm joined by a fellow sex, intimacy, and relationship coach. Her name is Lavinia Lazar. Welcome, Lavinia.
Thank you, Tari.
Yeah. And today we're talking about something really, really powerful when it comes to your sexuality. It's called erotic blueprints. Lavinia's going to tell you all about it in a minute. But before she does, I just want to give her a quick introduction. She, like myself, is an intimacy coach, an author, a gyrokinesis teacher, and a passionate tango and kizomba instructor. I don't want to waste any time before we jump right in. And I think learning about your erotic blueprint can make such a big difference. If you can imagine knowing what your partner likes erotically, not just where they want to be kissed and touched, not just nice little things that make them happy, but what they really, really respond to sexually, I think that can make all the difference in the world. And if you know that about yourself, then you can really make an impact on how you ask for things in your own relationship and how you hold yourself in relationship. So without saying any more, I'll turn it over to Lavinia. Once again, welcome, and tell us, I guess, what an erotic blueprint is to begin with.
Oh, yes. I'm like so excited about them. So they were basically part of what changed my life too. And you might know the 5 love languages, right?
Yeah.
It's something like the 5 love languages just for sex and eroticism.
Good. And let's just, for our listeners, clarify them. If you don't know what 5 love languages are, there's a book written, you take a simple test, it's like 5-7 minutes long, and it lets you know your style of being loved. And usually people have 1 or 2 that are most activated. And so what they are quality time, touch,
yes,
words of affirmation, gifts, and acts of service. Okay.
Exactly.
So some people feel loved when they receive a gift, and you can give them all the compliments in the world. You can say, you're so beautiful, you look amazing today, but really they just needed that Louis Vuitton purse to feel loved. But I use it all the time in my coaching practice, and it's a great tool to know that we often love people the way we want to be loved. And if you're dating someone whose love language is gifts, but yours is quality time and touch, it can make it very difficult for you to understand each other. So what Lavinia is going to share with us takes it a step further, because it's our erotic and sexual blueprint, and it gives us different modalities to understand ourselves.
Right. So you could basically see these blueprints as languages as well. There are 5 of them. There's the energetic, the sensual, the kinky, the sexual, and the shapeshifter. I'm just going to share briefly about them, what they are. And so the energetic is probably the most misunderstood of all blueprints. It's my primary as well. But before I get into that, I think before I get into that, I just want to say that, your erotic type is basically your doorway into pleasure. So that means that if this is your, let's say, your mother tongue, then this is what will open your body up for pleasure. And it doesn't mean that it's the only language you speak, but it means that this is the first language that needs to be addressed so that your body can open up. And then maybe you feel like speaking a second language after that, right? So that's the principle of all of this. And yeah, so the energetic, it's basically, it is the most unknown and misunderstood language of all. And it's people who are energetic are very, very sensitive, and like they can get aroused just from very, very, very light touch, almost barely touching their skin. And they can even get aroused from not being touched. Oftentimes they're freaking aroused just by the energy between 2 people, just by eye gazing, looking at someone, feeling the energy, stuff like that. And they can even be aroused by the wind that's blowing on their skin. So they're highly, highly sensitive, and they can have yeah, they can have full body orgasms just without being touched and without any genital contact.
Are energetics usually women?
I love that you ask that question. No, and I love busting that myth too, because all of these blueprints have nothing to do with gender or with male, female.
Great.
So there's so many men out there who are energetics and who just don't know it, and women too, right? And now
Why
to
would they
all,
not? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, why would they not know it?
Why would they not know it about themselves if they find themselves aroused by even the lightest of influence?
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's because when you don't know it, you don't own it. And because you've been taught that sex is something else. Nobody teaches us that, like, being aroused, like feeling the wind and letting it go through your body and letting this energy move through your body, that this may be an orgasm. We're all taught that orgasm has something to do with genitals.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've never heard that this is like, ooh, this is basically an erotic energy right here on my neck, then you will just not identify it as such. Like, I'm so happy that we're talking about it, because literally when I heard it, it changed my life completely. And until then, I thought something's wrong with me, because like my body is not reacting to the normal type of sexual interaction. And so it's just shutting down. And that's basically the downside or the shadow side of this blueprint. When you touch it too quickly, the body just goes numb, shuts down, and just armors and contracts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said. Did you say earlier, so that is your blueprint, personally energetic?
It's my primary blueprint, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you require a delicate, softer approach most of the time? Something that's safe and connected and maybe doesn't even need to be hands-on right away?
I love that you ask if I need that most of the time. Because here's the thing, it's my primary blueprint, and I need it definitely in the beginning.
Right.
Not always. Like, not always. And I'll tell you later why, but let's say most of the time I need that to open up.
Yeah.
But maybe after a few minutes or after half an hour, I'm in a totally different space. Mm-hmm. And I want something totally different, highly intense, crazy, and so on.
Yes. And can I add on a touch to this? This is really good.
Please, yes.
The way I coach that, because I don't speak in terms of the blueprints yet, is I always feel like everyone's got, you use the word, it's like a doorway into something. Almost all people have something that they need initially that makes you feel safe or receptive sexually. So typically with women, we imagine this very slow build, and over time, and you do all these different things. But I tell men who are often confused about how to turn on their wives, I say, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take hours and hours of blowing in Lavinia's hair and fanning her and feeding her a grape and playing soft music and, asking, like, you can build really quickly if you're speaking the language, right? If you know what it is. Yeah.
Totally.
Good. And then the second part of that, and this is the most important part to me of sexual intimacy, you said it yourself, is what someone wants in the beginning is not what they want to carry them through the whole process. Okay. So sometimes people want something intense and passionate and erotic, or soft and gentle. So it exists. You can do a soft, slow lovemaking session through the whole time. But usually, and I think what Lavinia is talking about is open her with this, approach her energetically, read her language that way, and then you can really build up to something that will make her face turn bright red.
Exactly. And hopefully yours too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
So another way to open the door, right, is the sensual way. And that's all about, it's like another type, right? Like another language. And it's the language of sensual artistry, like smells, touch, yummy, delicious touch, different kinds of,
Textures and
textures. Exactly. I've got this fur over here. Oh, delicious. Massages. And people who identify as sensuals, they just have this incredible capacity of receiving pleasure all over their bodies. Like there are these full body orgasmic beings. Like they have these full body orgasms. They can have them from being touched and massaged and worshipped and all of those.
And so just to be clear, you're drawing a distinction between the first archetype is energetic, the second is sensual. It's actually called sensual. And these people are more kinesthetic because it's more about feeling for them, like actual tactile feels, versus energetic, which is more about feeling sensations or more being mentally aroused, or how are those?
Energetic is really, let's say they have this capacity of feeling energy and of moving energy. It's not necessarily a mental thing, but another characteristic of them is also that they really long for a connection and for a heart connection. And another thing is that they really need space. They just love to be teased, and they love anticipation, and they just love this game of getting closer but not too close. So that's really what's a characteristic. Whereas the sensual just needs all of their senses to be ignited so that they can relax and fall into pleasure and actually leave their normal state. Let's say they're coming from a job or from just leaving their normal way of living and entering this erotic place. So they need this. They need, oftentimes they like even to wear a blindfold because it helps them relax. It helps them get out of their head and into their bodies. And and if they don't get that, then they will be very much in their head and they start worrying about everything. And so that's the shadow side, that they can just be in their head and worry about the socks that are not in the right place. The touch is just not right. Like things are simply not right. And mess, like they worry about mess, about body liquids, all of these things. So if a sensual is not addressed correctly, then they will find so many reasons as to why not to enter an erotic space, why not to have sex right now.
Great.
So the key for them is really relaxation.
That the way you explained and expounded on all of this was really, really good. It really, I think, drove the point home. Can an energetic be turned on by someone else getting turned on by them, but they don't want to engage? Like they love the idea of someone getting aroused and seeing it, but that doesn't mean they want that person to take physical action with them. So that might be perceived as a tease, like this person wants all my attention, but they're just feeling the excitement of the energy and that sort of thing. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. So that's like when an energetic is really just in their energetic realm and has not expanded into other blueprints, that's where it kind of gets narrow, right? Because the you know, the road on which they're playing is just this road. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's number 3?
So number 3, let's just take the sexual, which is like what we're all used to call sex, right? It's what we see in movies, what we see in Hollywood or porn. So sexuals are turned on by all things genitals, penetration, hard cocks, wet pussies. They love that, and they love watching sex. They love talking about sex. They love having sex, and sex is really simple. And yeah, so to them, like, sex is easy. They can just have it, and they're happy, and they actually need it. So a person who's a high sexual, for them, like, sex is really like air and water. If they don't have sex, they will not be able to relax. So imagine a sexual together with a sensual. Not that easy, because the sexual really needs to have sex before they can relax, and the sensual really needs to relax before they can have sex. So that's where it gets sort of either tricky but also interesting to explore all of our differences.
What do you think someone with a sexual archetype is who can only do that? In other words, it's only if it's this really like hard pounding, good, like doesn't want intimacy, doesn't want too much kissing, doesn't want too much touching, just give me that hard sex. Is that someone in their shadow side? Or is that just someone who's just really dialed into their sexual archetype?
You know, I wouldn't say that a sexual is that. Like, a sexual is like really just someone who loves sex. Like, they just love it. It's easy. It's fun. It's playful. It's like they love it. It's fun. And yeah, it's amazing. So these people are having a great, a high sex drive anyway, and they find it easy to express it. And they're having lots of fun in bed, actually. So the only thing that is not that cool for them maybe is that, well, they're sort of goal oriented. So for them, sex is only successful if they've had their penetration, if they've reached orgasm. And also the road to orgasm can be like really, you know, pretty steep.
Yeah.
And so they might just miss like the nice sort of the view on the way to the top of the mountain,
Right.
or just also not really be very mindful or understanding of partners who have different languages and different blueprints, and just don't understand, why is that woman so complicated? Why can't I just touch her breasts? Right? So I guess that, like, that's where it can get a bit complicated.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. In fact, I would say it seems like stereotypically most men would be of a sexual archetype. Like, that's very common for just, let's get in there, let's get started. It shouldn't be complicated. Let's reach orgasm. I've had a lot of clients come in like that. The way it plays out is, I don't know why it's so complicated for her. It should be easy. It should be simple. It feels like the universe and stars have to align, and I don't know what universe she has to be in for her to open her legs, but I just want to have simple sex. That's what I hear a lot.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's someone who would fall into the sexual archetype.
That's true. That's true.
AKA man.
Yes. And you know what I find so interesting about these men is that when we dive deeper into their blueprints, and when we start looking at their bodies, and not about what they expect sex to look like not the way they've learned to have sex, but really what it is that their bodies respond to, and they kind of find out, oh, you know what? actually, I've got some energetic inside of me too. And, my body's responding to kink. And, my body's responding to this and that. And I didn't even know it.
Mm.
That's where, like, I love having them discover that, because it just relaxes it all.
This might be a strange judgment, but I think if there's one archetype that should expose itself to others, it's the sexual one, because there's a whole world out there. And I just think you'll have more success, especially with women, when you understand all these other things, let alone yourself, or being able to discover that other things turn you on other than like penile vaginal sex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So what does a sexual person look like in their shadow side?
They're like, okay, sex, this is sex. They don't have the understanding that sex can be, physical touch all over the body. They absolutely don't understand why people are turned on by energies. And they can even be judgmental of that. They're just not interested. To them, this is sex. Can we just have it, please? That's the sexual in their shadow side.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me when I hear people. I'm not a big fan of the word just. I think it's something that we can often eliminate, because for other reasons, it can sound very, very weak. Like, hey, I'm just calling to see if you're okay. I just wanted to make sure everything was all right. But I also don't like when people say it's just sex. I mean, maybe if you're making porn, it's just sex, but I think there's always a little more than just that, usually for at least one of the partners, right? Like, and I think that for it to just be sex or casual or hookup, something else is involved that falls in the shadow side. Drugs, alcohol, smoking weed, whatever. Breakup, you're dealing with a breakup, you're reeling, you want attention, you don't want to think about it, you just want to get fucked. It's been so long, it's been years since you have. And so to me, a lot of those things fall in the shadow side, and that's what allows people to say it's just sex or I just want sex. But I always feel like there's, if you can tune into it, there's so much more. Every sexual experience doesn't have to be a lovemaking, super sensual, juicy experience. It could be a really good hard fuck and still be more than just sex, in my opinion.
I so love that you touched on these addiction, on this addiction topic, because I truly see, and I see oftentimes sex as an addiction, and it's when people get into their sexual shadow when they experience this sex as an addiction. And at the same time, I really want to say that all these blueprints are like, there's none is better than the other. And just like the sexual is the lowest in my stack. So I just want to make sure that I'm making it clear that the sexual blueprint is absolutely okay, and that it's not narrow-minded or anything. I just really want to sort of make sure that I'm not including my bias into my description.
Yes, the way I have been doing, yes.
Because let me tell you something that I personally really admire about sexuals. It's about how they just have fun in the bedroom, and how they just have all of that heat and that energy. Really, they can go from 0 to 60 just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes me so much more time and so much to get there. And so for me, when I have a strong sexual, it's hard to relate to them quickly. But if we meet in another place first, and then I do meet a sexual, like, I'm so happy that they are sort of bringing all of that fire into our interactions.
Yeah.
So just to say a good word about that.
No, it's very important you did, and I wasn't trying to skew it in one direction. So I appreciate that. Again, that can also, I know I'm saying this, and this is different than what Lavinia said, but it tends to be, to me, often men who are so ready for that. It's men who have that directionality and that decisiveness and that ability to amp it up and just go. And you could really be carried away by the rush of that. And so often it does get judged, to speak to the other side of like, all he thinks about is sex, all he wants is this, what about all this other stuff? But there is, if you want to talk about having a hot experience, okay, which is different than a sensual one or an energetic one, to me, a hot experience often comes from the ability to go there and not spend so much time in the emotional and sensual and whatever. Those things can build up to it. But to me, the hot aspect is a little quicker and a little more passionate, and that's what makes it so.
Yes, and that's delicious.
Good.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Number 4.
Let's go to
archetype.
kinky. All right. So now the kinky blueprint is all about the taboo. And that means not necessarily whips and chains, but it's really whatever is taboo for you. So that can be really having sex in the kitchen if you've never done it before and you feel a bit anxious to do that. Or it can be just sex in an not ordinary position. So it can be something really simple, but it can be whips and chains. So BDSM is also something that falls into that. And there's this psychological aspect to it as well as the sensational aspect. So if you want to feel, so the difference between a sensual and a sensation-based kinky is that the kinky will appreciate really intense sensation, like a scratch or a slap, or really intense stuff with ropes and restriction and all of that, and also impact play, or all of that, pain even. But and then you've got the psychological aspect of it, which is just so endless. All about rules, dominance, submission, but also role play. Like, it's an endless world and a very creative one, and just beautiful.
That was a very nice picture that you painted there. Here's what I heard. The difference between someone who is sensual as their archetype and someone who is a sensation-based kinky type person is intensity and the degree of which they like something forceful or impactful on them. So it probably edges into the realm of what people would consider some form of pain or intensity. Whereas the sensual likes everything soft and fluid and long strokes. You might think of it like a nice massage, being on fur, nice scents in the air. All of their senses are ignited. Does that sound accurate so far?
Absolutely. That's it.
And I think it might be a nice place while we're talking about this to talk about kinky and maybe redefine it or define it appropriately. I think if you ask anyone on the street, do you have any kinks? Okay. The people who are in touch and celebrate it, who do, are going to be like, oh yeah. I need to have socks on when I masturbate, and I like to lick heels of women's shoes, and I need this, that. And they're very clear about what that sort of extreme version of it is. Yeah. But I don't think people would often say, well, I never am on my hands and knees, and last night I had a lover who put me in doggy style, but I would never normally do that. So it was a push for me. It was exotic. And that's where the psychological aspect comes in. For it to be kinky, it can just be outside of your norm, or you can perceive it as mentally wrong. But most of the world won't understand this, I feel like, because it'll just sound vanilla. Like, so what? You did a different position, or you just You try, you did it in the car or what have you. But if it's psychologically playing on you that way, playing on you in an erotic way, to me, there can be kink to it. And maybe we can go down a little list. I mean, I like what you shared. It doesn't have to be BDSM. It could be a different position. It could be sex in an inappropriate place. It could be having someone watch you. It could be the risk of getting caught. It could be the risk of possibly someone watching you, but you definitely don't want them watching you, like in a park or far away in the back of a theater or whatever. The excitement that could come from that,
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Do you have, I don't know if anything comes to mind, but like a list of a few more things that lean towards the sort of softer version of kink that people might not put in that category?
Well, really, like just everything that you said, it can be so simple. It can be really, it's basically what's giving you a thrill, I would say. So maybe it's giving you a thrill to be with a lover and to write to someone else while your lover is there. Like,
yeah,
very simple. Like this, like you could say it's not sex, but maybe it is, because it's really giving you a thrill.
Or it could be, I've actually done this before. It could be like you're on a phone call while you're having sex with someone, or they're eating you out or kissing you, and you're trying to like, yeah, okay, Tuesday at right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're sending inappropriate pictures to someone that you're kind of dating, and you're really getting out of your comfort zone. You're getting into a place where you're playing with fire a little bit.
Right.
Even if the other person doesn't perceive it that way, but for you, it feels like, oh my God.
Yes. For the other person, sorry, my computer just said it's going to restart in 60 seconds, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Oopsie.
I think I caught it. Yeah, for the other person receiving those pictures, they could be one of those just people, and it's just a dick pic or just some tits pic or whatever like that. But for you, it could be really stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Yes. Yeah. So
this may be a bizarre question, or a Lazar question, but what is the difference between all of these different things that can be considered kink and someone who's energetic, who's turned on by non-traditional things that, not like genitals and boobs and butt and all that? Couldn't energetic be considered a form of kink, because it's sort of an ethereal aspect of it?
Yeah, there is a connection between both, right? Because they're both sort of, as you say, they're both in the air, sort of. They're both able to actually have these altered states of consciousness while playing in eroticism. So yes, and also there's a branch of the energetic, which is the dark energetic. And the dark energetic is not really this angelic, open-hearted person. It's rather, they've got this sort of energy, where you basically take your energy back to yourself, into your center, and a bit of a bad boy or bad girl energy. See what I mean? It's not the open-hearted energy, but it's really like more of the bad boy energy, where you feel like, oh, don't come too close.
What makes it bad boy or bad girl energy just because they're withdrawing and pulling back? I'm not getting that distinction.
I can sort of show it to you. I don't know how to describe, like I'm showing it to you, and you might describe it to our listeners. So here's like my light energetic. Right, that was it. And there you go, my dark energetic.
critical, sitting back in judgment, not trusting easily, suspicious, intentionally trying to be coy or mysterious.
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah, it's like not really. It's
Here's what I'm
difficult for
seeing.
me to describe it in English.
You know, it's a little like, I'm exaggerating, a little like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I can trust you.
Yeah. Yes. Well, you know, you can, when you use that in a playful way, yeah, it's not necessarily about mistrusting, but it's a sort of, I want to create a boundary energetically.
Okay. So the shadow side puts a boundary between letting someone get close to you.
It's not even a shadow. It's really just a way of expressing it. Yeah, it's an aspect of it. So you can be a light energetic, and you're sort of this spiritual yoga person, open-hearted, seeking for connection. You're talking about your yoni and your lingam, and your body's your temple. That type of person. Or you don't necessarily need to wear a tattoo and all of these black things, but you might just have a little bit of that in your energy.
Gotcha.
So that's where I see the connection to kink, basically, because a kinky would really express that more into the way they dress. They would be wearing like, okay, let me just show you my purse. Like, look,
spikes on it.
No,
chain.
But you know, like I do have this little chain element in my purse, and otherwise it's just a nice purse. You know, nobody would believe anything, but I just love having the chains on it.
Okay.
So, like, see, like when people are kinky, they sort of are drawn to a little bit of something heavy, metallic, cold, black, whatever it is, and some really express it much more. But me, I've got it a little bit, and I've been having this purse for years, and it was only when I learned about the blueprints that I realized what really attracted me to that purse. So it's really part of me, but you see, it's a softer part of me. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I think we have one more.
Sure. So then there's the shapeshifter. And so the shapeshifter, I totally forgot to tell you about the shadow side of the kinky, which is really important because, the shadow side is really deep shame. And I find that interesting because it's just what you were talking about. So many people would never believe that they are kinky or that they somehow like to play in that realm. But basically, most people actually are when they start looking at themselves. So we all have these sides. They just look really differently. And the reason why we don't know it is that we are so ashamed of it and that we are judging ourselves for it. And so even if our body is kind of reacting to something that we believe to be bad, then we're just going to say that that's not me, right? So what if I really get turned on when I see like a movie scene where someone is really having their pants on and even inflicting pain on someone or humiliating someone? What if like I just really get turned on by watching that? What do I do? Well, it might be a sign that there is some kink inside of me, but most people will repress that. They just won't see it as a sign because there's this deep shame, like you can't like that, you can't be turned on by that. And then there's the whole judgment of like, oh my God, no, I would never manipulate people, misuse my power, all of those. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's easy to see where shame comes from when pain is involved. Like why would you want to hurt yourself? Why would you want to inflict pain onto yourself? Why would you want to hurt somebody else? You know, the general rules and consensus are that that is just wrong and inappropriate. But it becomes a little more subtle to see where shame can come in if it's just something, I guess you could say, out of the norm, but who's to say, I mean, what is the norm? You know, if you like public sex, or you like sex in the car, or you like certain positions, or you like to be restrained, where does the shame even come from? Gosh, I mean, unless, because often people like to just blame it on this word society.
Yeah.
Okay. But society isn't it's not someone you can go talk to, or you can get very specific information as to why society has judged it. It's just a knee-jerk response, or as I call it, a loaded word. So if you like something that's not particularly harming anyone, but you have shame around it, I always wonder where that guilt or shame comes from, and why we think we judge ourselves. I must be so weird, or this is wrong, or there must be something wrong with me. I mean, unless you've had a partner who has judged it or not been comfortable with it, you know? But yeah, do you have any sense of where that feeling of shame comes from when you have a sort of a softer kink, or just enjoy something different, but
I do think it comes from, what we believe about ourselves. Like, we believe we're a good person, so we're never going to hurt anyone. Or we believe that, or we feel we need to be in control, so we're never going to surrender like that,
right,
to that extent. All of those. So, of course, it's highly individual and very different where we've acquired these beliefs. But I guess it has something to do with that. And what I'd really like listeners to know is that there's nothing unhealthy, or there's nothing bad, wrong, or unhealthy if you have all these turn-ons. It's not like you're not broken. You're absolutely right. Okay. You're more than okay. And I really want people to know also that people who are kinky and who are living their kinks consciously and playing with it are basically the most resilient people we have in our society. And it's really scientifically proven that people who do play in BDSM and kink, that they are psychologically extremely healthy. And yeah, I think this is part of what we also think, oh, something must be wrong with them. They must have trauma. They must be really sick. It's really not the case. Yeah. Because this is just all happening in a very consensual way. And, everything that brings you pleasure and that is within the law is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's obviously a psychological component. Where do you place the people who sort of don't want to do anything but have kinky sex? In other words, they need, just to pick something silly, an article of clothing, or to be wearing heels, or they have to see feet, or, feet have to be masturbating you in order to feel excitement. Or what do you feel like that is?
That is a shadow side of the kink. Like when you've got just one fetish and that's the only way for you to get aroused. Like, if you have a partner who loves that and who wants to do just that with you, then it's great. Just normally it's not really what's happening. So normally you will have people who will want more than that. And that's like your opportunity to just expand. It's like nothing's wrong with you. It's just that you can have more. And if you want to have more fun with more people, then you can expand.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
So now to the fifth one, which is the shapeshifter. The shapeshifter is just turned on by all of those. And it's like a highly, highly, highly erotic being. Like this is a pleasure god and a pleasure goddess, and it's just an amazing lover. Like, a shapeshifter is someone who speaks all the languages, who's fluent in all of those. Just imagine someone who can meet you wherever you are because they always understand you. That's amazing. And of course, like these people, because they speak so many languages, they also need to speak them, right? So they love the whole variety. They love to shift and change and to shapeshift from one language to the other. And well, when they don't have that, they kind of get either bored or they just don't really realize what's missing, but they're feeling like something's missing. So the shadow side of the shapeshifter is that they'll just really be incredible at satisfying their partner, but they might forget to get their needs met if their partner is not a shapeshifter too and is not speaking all of these languages.
They might not be able to get their needs met?
Yes. Okay. Because they're really, really focused on their partner. They love giving pleasure to their partners. That comes easily to them. But then they might just realize that they might just really turn to, how do you say this in English? When you're in a relationship and then you're going to have sex with other people?
A polyamorous relationship or open?
Well, no, when you're basically cheating on your partner. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, you can also have open relationships and be poly about it, but that's basically when you more when you're owning your shapeshifter nature,
right?
As opposed to when you're not aware of it and you just don't know what's missing, and then you might start cheating because you need the whole variety and you need the novelty and you need the thrill and you need all of it, but you're not getting it in your relationship and you don't really realize that it's really more about you realizing your needs and communicating that to your partner who's not a shapeshifter and who's not reading your body and your mind. Mm-hmm. So these are like amazing beings, and I think like really erotically sophisticated. And oftentimes people who are who can be sex coaches, for example, who are very capable of not just having amazing sex, but also explaining different flavors of it, teaching it to people, because they've got all this embodied knowing.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you feel shapeshifters get, I don't like the word bored, but need more stimulation if they're with, like you started to talk to earlier a little bit, if they're with someone who is just one of the other archetypes? Is that a little more challenging for a shapeshifter if it's just any of the singular ones? Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Gotcha.
Yes.
What does the shadow side look like?
It's really that they don't realize that they have needs that are not being met in this relationship, because they're just really shapeshifting to please their partner. They're doing it automatically and it works. But they just don't realize that they need more, and they need more variety. They need to speak other languages too. And oftentimes they've been told that they're too much. So that's why they're actually believing that, oh, I can't say this. I can't state all of those needs because I'm really too much. How can I say that I want this and that and that? And really, I want to have sex for 4, 5, 6 hours. And I want to have all these varieties, like, oh my God, I'm going to overwhelm people. That's the type of shadow.
Yes.
But I really want it, actually. What do I do?
Yeah. I'm familiar. Where I get stuck is often wanting to experience the variety or the difference through different people, because you're a Romanian living in Germany and she's a Brazilian living in New York and she's a blah, blah, blah. So many different types and personalities, and there's like such a juiciness that it doesn't matter. I think the hard thing to explain to people as a shapeshifter, which it seems like I may be, is that it doesn't minimize. If you and I are spending time together and we have an incredible, incredible experience that's bonding and close and uniting, if I then crave something different, it doesn't minimize you as like you're not enough, or there's lack, or I can't just be happy with you. There seems to want to be a reflection that there must be something wrong with me, or there must be something wrong with you. Otherwise, the relationship would just work and you would be happily ever after. And so one of the challenging things I run into if I'm activating these aspects of my life is how to have deep connections with people, which I love. The cuddling, the closeness, the intimacy, the sensuality, the energetic aspect of it, the sexuality of it, the communication. And then say, and I also would like to go experience this, and I also would like to have this happen. You know, also, by the way, being well aware, and this is, I mean, jealousy is a whole different subject, is like that if I was in that same position and you came to me and you said, oh, Tari, we had this amazing time together. Thank you so much for a weekend of magic. And on Monday morning, you're off with Fabio in Spain. There's a little of that. I understand the feeling. It's not that I don't get it. It's like bereft. I invested all this energy. I gave you all of this, and now you're just off with another. And it feels like you're looking for the next and the next and the next. So I understand that. But as someone who lives the other side, there's never like lack and not enoughness. It doesn't present itself as like, she's not good enough. She's not good enough. I need something. It doesn't feel like a constant reaching. It just feels like a total enjoyment. Lastly, much like, I often use the food analogy. I think it's very effective. I don't think it gets enough credit, but often the way no one wants to eat an incredible, delicious bowl of oatmeal every day for the rest of their life, or filet mignon, or an incredible, vegan creation. It's delicious the first and the second and the third time, but again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and it gets tricky. And why I think people are able to sustain themselves in long-term relationships with partners who they're not immediately happy with is because, we're not vegetables and oatmeal. We're living, breathing people who have emotions and changes, and we can do our hair and we can change our look and we could wear something and we could have a difference in feeling and emotion. I think that's what keeps things interesting. But at the same time, so I speak Italian and Spanish and a little Russian and a little French, but if someone has a thing for people from Uzbekistan, I can never be that, or like a really dark features, or blonde hair, blue eyes, or built like a fireman, or there's all these differences that make life delicious for people. And we can't be all things to all people. I think that's the summation of it, and the being okay with that. I know where my talents and my skills lie. I know what I'm capable of offering a woman, but I also know what I can't be. And you could get sad about, right? Like I'll never have shoulders out to here or a chest out to here unless I take steroids. I'm never going to be another foot taller or shorter or whatever.
Right.
So you got, right? And I think I'm just having all these ideas, but the difficult part about all this is, even without dating someone who's a shapeshifter, or who wants variety, or who activates your own triggers, we all have our own insecurities about not being tall enough, not being pretty enough, not being good enough, not being smart, whatever it is. And so if we see the person we love going with someone different, that only exacerbates and heightens our own insecurity of like, I guess my chest isn't big enough, or my butt isn't wide enough, or my this isn't, whatever it is, you know?
Right.
So it's hard. It's hard being on the receiving end of someone with a big appetite, or a love for fun, or a strong appreciation of the sensual and sexual.
Absolutely.
Do you
And thank you
have,
for sharing that. Like, really, thank you for sharing so vividly how it feels to be a shapeshifter.
yeah.
And also really saying that don't take this personally. This is just who I am.
Yeah, but
and I guess we can
yes,
say that about every blueprint. Don't
right.
take this personally. I'm just an energetic. This is just who I am. This is how I work. This is how my body works. And this is what I need. And I think like what I love about these blueprints is that they look like boxes, right? It's not about putting people into boxes, but it's really about finding a language to say, look, this is who I am as an erotic being. And this is how my turn on works. And if this happens, it's not about you. Right. And you're so spot on that even if you say it this way, like clearly with love and care, you will push people's buttons, and we will all get our buttons pushed. And that's just inevitable, right? And it's just such a constant expansion to be to owning who you are even more, and to see how you can, like, it's been my own journey too, to own that even more, and to see when I do own it and I say this to people and I do push their buttons, after a time these buttons like sort of they get loose. So what I've noticed is also that the more we own this nature of ours, the more people will learn to relax with us, to not take things personally. And the more we do it, we will also attract people who are not jealous or who do not have that problem with us being us. It's really this whole journey of owning it even more. So when I talk about loving yourself really deeply, that's part of what I'm talking about.
I have a couple thoughts on that. And as someone who's lived through what you're describing, I believe, and I want to believe, that owning something and living your truth is going to really establish yourself as like, it's actually a boundary. It's like, this is who I am, and I'm not going to tolerate less in some ways.
Yes,
okay, right?
exactly.
I'm not going to stop doing what I love because it bothers you. But in doing that, my experience is, the sentence I want to say is, I believe if you own it, I continue to believe it, and yet my experience in real life hasn't always been that when I own it, I still see that it can hurt other people emotionally, right? Like someone who's in love with you, or who loves you or appreciates you, or just even someone who's traditional and just wants, like, you've dated once or twice, or you've slept together a handful of times, and therefore, what does this mean? Don't I meet your parents now? And where are we going? And what is this? And it's just it's a different idea than where I happen to sit on that scale. I mean, I've done it. I've been in all these types of very traditional monogamous relationships, and of course, introduced the family and gone to see theirs. It's not something I'm uncomfortable with, but we're all on different scripts. So what I've found is, even when I own it, and even when I'm honest, and even when I express my true heart, like, here's how it is, but I'm also very sensitive to what you have going on. I want to stay together, or I want to continue to see you, or I'd love for this to go on, but I also see that I'm hurting you. Like, who I am in this particular relationship is hurting you. It's hurting you, and we're good. It's hurting you and we love each other. It's hurting you and you want to continue to see me anyway because it's so good. So
yes, and that's life. That's like,
yeah,
yes,
that's
exactly.
the hard
And
part of life.
yes, and I just love that you describe it. Yes, we are doing this. This is a consensual thing. We are hurting each other, or I'm hurting you, or you're hurting me. And we want to continue. Like, it's perfect. I know, like, we might sometimes believe that if things work out really well, we don't hurt each other, or there isn't, it's just perfect, right? It's like in the fairy tale. Well, what if the perfection is about being in this whole intense experience? Like, what if that is it? What if that's it? Why not be there?
I mean, I think the spiritual teachers might say that's where it is. It's like you are where you are, and an acceptance around it, and there's growth to be had, and all of that. But I kind of rebel against that, because there is a side of me that wants to believe, no, I don't want to be hurting people while I'm enjoying myself. And I don't want to be limiting myself so that someone else can feel better. And I don't want the person that I love to either have to break up with me to get space so she can cope and deal and not be worried and concerned. Like it just feels so extreme, So you either create this like illusionary bubble of pretending that these things aren't bothering you, and pretending that she's not dating him and I'm not dating her and whatever. It's just a little bubble. Or you break up completely because you can't handle it. I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, another way to think is that, which I also want to believe, but don't really see it play out in my life that way, is that once you are in alignment with who you are and you are decisive about it, that you'll attract like-minded people, or people who can accept it, or people who accept you for who you are because you are who you are. I like that idea.
Ooh, yes.
Okay? But I don't see it happen that way. I don't see, no matter how clear I get or how strong I stand in who I am as a man or a sexual being or a shapeshifter or what I like, I continue to attract wonderful, loving, sweet, kind, amazing women who want me all to themselves and don't want to share.
Huh? Interesting. I love watching these, like, like you're just talking about a pattern, right?
Right.
And it's like, I love those. I've been having patterns that ran my life for decades. And
you love those?
Yeah, I love those. I came to love those because what we do with those is that we say we don't want them. We want to
break free of them.
Break free of them. We want to sort of get rid of the blocks. And if we're more spiritual and more enlightened, we'll say we don't want to get rid of those, but we want to integrate those. So we're going to find all kinds of words to say that we want to have them out of our life, because they're sort of making us unfree. And you know what? What if that's just making us who we are? What I came to realize with these extreme patterns is that deep, deep, deep acceptance of those patterns, like on a visceral, deep, deep, deep level, is the only thing that will eventually give them the chance for themselves to transform. It's not, you can't ever do it. You can't do it. It's like when you actually sort of are on your knees and surrender to that reality, then that reality might transform, if that's what God wants. And I'm going to use the word God in this case because it's been my reality, really. Mm-hmm. And let me just give you an example. As an energetic, at some point in my relationship, sex was just not possible anymore because I had vaginismus. And that's when your vagina contracts and doesn't let anything in.
Oh.
And it's sort of your body really shutting down, saying no to penetration. So I've been having that for a few years, working on that really hard, trying to get rid of it. And it didn't work. So you know what I did? I just gave up. I just gave up on trying to fix it. I just said, okay, like, if I get to have this my whole life, it means that I'm never going to have sex with a man, like penetrative sex, and I'm never going to have kids. And I wanted to have both. So I actually had to give up on my dreams and to really accept that this might be my life from now on. Because everything I did just didn't work. Like, really, I've been working for years. So what happened was that the moment I truly, really accepted it, I threw away all my condoms. I just really, like, I buried the whole shit. And you know what happened? And it was hard, and I was crying, and I was literally giving up on that dream. Okay. And a few weeks later, a guy stepped into my life. I told him, you know, like, we can meet, we can cuddle, sex is never gonna happen. He was like, okay, let's just cuddle. Like, yeah, it's fine. I don't need to do anything. Like, the same night, he and I were having sex. And all of a sudden I was like, are you actually in me? I can't believe this. So yeah, isn't that interesting?
Beautiful. Yeah. What you're talking about is surrender. Surrender, you can call it to the divine, to source, to God, whatever language you want to use it. You're talking about letting go. And I think what that is resistance. It's again something I struggle with. Everybody struggles with. How do you let go? If I say, you're holding this too tight, just let it go. You see it fall out of my hand because I dropped it. In fact, that's language we often use for conversations. Just drop it. Stop. Just let it go. But it's far, 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 far more difficult to mentally let something go, especially if it's a dream and it's a desire and it's something you've been wanting for a long time. And it doesn't make immediate sense why letting it, not holding on to it would solve the problem. So we think that when we clasp something in our hands, that to me, that's what's creating the resistance. That's part of the patterning. It's this holding and it's tight and you're squeezing it. It's like, I'm not letting it go. So it cannot fix itself. When you unlayer, when you release resistance, when you soften, when you get easy, become easy about it.
Yeah.
Well, in your case, all of a sudden things opened right up, apparently.
Yeah. And there really are things where I feel like we're really working for so many decades of our life sort of against them, right? We want to fix them. We want to solve them. We want to get rid of them. And then all that's left to do is to surrender. And that's when things really shift. That was like fun to see.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But it's also, again, a really interesting, like, if you say just surrender, just let go, you can't just say that. I can't just say I'm letting go. You know,
I guess you really, and that's the thing, you really need to go through that pain.
Right.
You really need to get to that point. And that's why I feel like when we're avoiding pain or don't want to feel the pain or like, oh, why is this happening? Why is this so complicated? It's like just not wanting to live life fully, actually. And I know it. I've been there. I'm there again and again. Just want to have things chill and easy, right?
Yeah. Chill and easy.
And I also like the practice of making like pain pleasurable. It's actually one of my crazy ideas is that I at some point I wanted to turn everything into orgasm. I wanted to turn, like, I had this thing with numbers that I'm not good at numbers, and I thought, like, why don't I make numbers orgasmic for me? How can I make them orgasmic? Or throwing up, like, I hated throwing up. That was one of the very few body sensations that I didn't like. And I'm like, how can I make this pleasurable? And just by deciding that, like, why don't I just accept it and find like the surrender part in it instead of fighting it? I know it's a fun practice, but it's taught me so much about life.
Well said. I think that was actually a really powerful spiritual wisdom that you just shared. How do you find the surrender in it? How do you find the surrender in it? Whatever you're doing, you know? We try so hard to look a certain way, be a certain way, not age, be sexy, be desirable, sound perfect on our podcast, be the perfect sexual partner. And all you can then do is be you. And then it turns out that when you do surrender, that's like the most attractive version to everybody else. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. So do you feel like we've covered enough about this? Would you like to use me as an example for something to go a little bit deeper before we wrap up? Where do you feel like we are now with the erotic blueprints?
I feel we're really good. I could go on and talk about this for days, but I think for today it's like it's really good.
Yeah, and I think a lot of really powerful like nuggets and distinctions and nuances came from exploring it. Yeah. Okay. So why don't we gently then wrap up, and let me give you the floor to just talk about what kind of support you do offer, how people can get in touch with you overseas, and maybe where you feel like, clearly to reemphasize, what Lavinia specializes in are specifically these erotic blueprints. So if you do find that interesting and you feel like you'd like to know more about your own erotic blueprint, here, I'll just sell it for you. You should be in touch with her because she's studied it and she has a background in it, and it's really a big part of her coaching, I imagine. So anyhow, yes. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Thank you, Tari. So it's true, like I do specialize in the erotic blueprints, and there are actually many erotic blueprint coaches out there. We're like over 200. So we all work with this method that Jaya created. There's also an online course. If someone's simply interested in taking that course, that's absolutely possible. And the thing that erotic blueprint coaches do is that we're adding our personal flavor to this blueprint work. So I'm just going to say something about the people who I seem to attract into my field and who want to work with me. These are people who either are single and are willing to discover who they really are as erotic beings because they just don't feel really 100% satisfied in their sex life until now. Or also I've been working with women, and I love doing this, like women who really understand that owning their eroticism means them really coming into their glowing and magnetic power. So I've been really having so much delicious fun with women who want to use their magnetic energy to attract ideal clients or ideal partners. So that's just a realm that I just love playing in. And of course, I also work with couples who are having different desires and who are not having any sex anymore, or who just don't really feel like they're matching, and they just look for support in that area.
Great.
Yeah.
And then how can we find you? How can we get in touch?
Yeah, well, you can find me either on social media. You can just type my name in Facebook or Instagram. Or it's Lavinia Lazar. You write it Laviniania. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Lazar. Right.
Lazar for people in America. Yeah.
Okay.
Lavinia Lazar. There we go.
That's it. And you can also Google me. I've got a website in German if you happen to be in Austria, Switzerland, or Germany. It's just my name with a minus between them and then .de.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think we'll try to share the Erotic Blueprint quiz link in the notes or the show notes. We're going to most likely push this video to YouTube, and we'll try to push the audio to the podcast as well and get it out on all of the channels. I have one more interesting question. It's something I think about regularly in this time that we're in, and just sort of curious to hear. Sorry, it's a little bit of a curveball. What do you recommend to people who want to express more of their magnetism, who want to shine a little bit more, but we are covered in our masks and we're scared and we're frightened and all you see is eyes, and you walk past someone and they leap over to the side to get away from you because you're poisonous and you might kill them, and nobody wants contact. How do you recommend people let their light shine when everybody is suspicious that you're going to murder them?
I love this drama.
Yeah. Well, and also, sorry, one more thing. I say that it's not that I'm leaning towards any type of belief system. It's that when you're masked up and you move away from someone, or you catch yourself backing away or fixing your mask, it often leaves the other person feeling even more judged and even more separate and even more distant than just daily interaction, which can already be difficult. So yeah, curious to hear your couple thoughts on that.
Right. I've got at least 3. Let me see. Okay. So one thing that I love doing myself is to put some really sexy music on and just throw a party in my apartment and feel really, really sexy and just really get into my own juiciness.
By yourself?
By myself.
Okay.
And so I will just enter my own juiciness through my own self-pleasure practice, which is also something that I teach my clients to do. And when I'm in that space, I'm literally another person. And then when I go out and people look frightened and stuff like that, I will just look them in the eyes with those glowing eyes, and I'll just smile through my mask, and they're going to see my eyes looking at them with a friendly look, or maybe maybe it's not friendly, maybe it's challenging. Any type of energy that I would embody, and I would just go out and spread it, literally. And that's it. And that's what I do. And that's what I really would recommend you to do. Like, don't make yourself depend on masks or anything. Like, I mean, go and just have fun anyway.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well said.
What would you do?
Oh,
I'm so curious.
Gosh. Yeah. I really think we have to take charge of our vibrational countenance, which is what you're describing. You're talking about amping up your personal energy so that you're so happy that people's doom and gloom doesn't bring you down. You actually inspire others. And my answer is similar to that. You either have to be so connected to yourself, or find something to be happy about, or even fantasizing about a house you want to live in, or a car you want to buy, or a Christmas present you're excited to receive, and just have that active in your mind and your body, so that you're not in the mass hysteria and the mass paranoia. And we said it earlier about the blueprints as well. It's a phrase that, again, I don't think works, but we have to learn how to make it work. And that phrase is, don't take it personally. The person saying this always feels that, that's all you need to do. And the person hearing it's like, yeah, I don't want to take it personally, but I do. And so there's a struggle in figuring out, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. But they're looking at me and they're moving away. It's not about me. But they're freaking out. It's not like, it's tricky. It's really, really tricky. And so sometimes in manifestation and creating, we focus too much on the issue at hand. And I'm really a fan of just withdrawal, going more general, pulling out, getting lost in your own thoughts, taking things lightly, backing out of situation, you know, just moving about.
I love that one, the backing off and taking things lightly and not taking things too seriously. Oh, yes. Ooh, delicious. Oof. Yes.
Very good. Well, this was an absolute pleasure. I think we really did a great job here of covering so many fun, interesting subjects. And I'm really excited to see how it's received. And it's a delight. And so world, you have, you know, now you know of yet another sex coach to talk to if you're not coming to me in sunny San Diego or if you're out in Germany. Yeah. And of course, online and with Zoom as well. So thank you very much for all of your time today.
Thank you, Tari. This was really, really, really juicy.
Good. Good. All right. I'll see you soon.